Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Black Mental Wellness Lounge. Brandon Johnson here. This is Black Youth Suicide Prevention Week. For those of you who've been with us for a while, last year is when we started it, and simply it was just sharing some infographics, doing some things to spread information about this. And so this year it's bigger, it's better. We have some special guests and speakers, and we're getting ready to talk to one in a moment. And so honored to kind of bring this information to you all, just because there's so much that we can do for our young people. And at the Black Mental Wellness Lounge, we want to be at the forefront of that. We want to do as much as we can from the community perspective in raising awareness, because this is what we do. This is a part of why this YouTube page was created. And so for each of our episodes, I'm highlighting a organization, a place, a thing, something in this space. And so for this one, I am highlighting the illustrious, the magnificent Morgan State University, more particularly our Department of Psychology, where I am alum from. Dr. Turner Musa, who's my forever buddy, mentor, professor, who changed my whole career trajectory, is the chair there. And anybody, if you're listening to this and you're interested in getting into this space, and especially on the research end of things, definitely look up Morgan's psych program. And so, without further ado, we have a very special guest here today. And I'm so excited to have Mr. Dan Gillison on, who is the CEO of NAMI. And we'll get into, for those who aren't familiar with NAMI, we'll get into some of that information there. But we got to meet recently. We've been following each other on LinkedIn, watching the things that you're doing. And we ended up in the same place, in the same space, and just immediately bonded, and all those other things. And so it's really great to have you on. It's great to have a Black man in the position that you're in. It's awesome having you in these spaces, really, for our people. And so first and foremost, welcome to the Black Mental Wellness Lounge.
Thank you, and it's so good to be here with you, Brandon. And and in your representation of Morgan State and that HBCU, I've got to speak on it. I'm a graduate of Southern University in Baton Rouge, and
Awesome.
when we talk about the HBCUs, we know what they've meant to both of us. So really cool, really cool.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we got HBCU pride everywhere, wherever you go. Even Coppin State, which is Morgan's rival, even even Coppin. So,
You gotta
um,
give him a little bit of. You gotta give him a little play. I got you.
I do, and my brother went to Coppin. I know he's going to see this, and so had to. I always got to give it to him, right?
Yeah, you got to do it. You
Got
got to
to.
do it.
Got to. So I'm so honored to have you for the time today. And so at the Black Mental Wellness Lounge, this is a laid back environment. We want people to get to know our guests. And so just tell our audience about yourself, anything that you want to share, personal, professional, wherever it is. Just introduce yourself to the lounge.
Yeah, and first of all, thank you so much again. And in terms of introducing myself, I'm a kid from Northeast DC. I grew up in Washington DC. Part of my family grew up in Greater Southeast, and then we talk about Morgan State. My dad's family is actually from St. Mary's County, and a few of my aunts lived in Baltimore. I grew up in DC, and my dad was a bookbinder at day, drove a cab at night, and really hustled to put me and my brother through school. And while he was there in the house with us, we didn't see him during the week. We only saw him on the weekends because we were in bed asleep when he would come home after his second job. And then he was up and out on his first job before we got up to go to school. So not much different than many families. It's
Right.
all about hustling and trying to do all of that. Southeast, part of my family grew up there. My mom's people are from North Carolina. My dad's people from St. Mary's County. And I went to school in DC. I went to school through high school in DC, and then left DC at 17 and went to Baton Rouge and Southern University.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, so that's great to, it's always good to know people's, roots and, how they came up, because that's so much of us, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so much a part of who we are and what our makeup is. And so, switching gears a bit and going into the professional side of things and looking into that, would love for you to share about what you do, your position, and also about NAMI. Everybody who's listening may not be familiar with NAMI, and two, some of the things that you all provide. You all are so tapped in across the country, helping individuals with so many programs. Um, could you just kind of walk our audience through some of that?
yeah. I would love to. NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, started 43 years ago, and it was started by a couple of mothers that whose sons had just been diagnosed with schizophrenia. The other part of this dynamic is that back in 1979, they were told that the reason that their sons were assessed with, diagnosed with schizophrenia was because of how they were being raised.
Mm,
That moment in time, those mothers began advocating, and they began advocating for their young men, and that has matriculated into this organization that is the largest grassroots mental health organization in these United States. With over we're in over 660 communities across the U.S. And when we talk about grassroots, we're that DNA in communities across the U.S. that have that connective tissue to where the services are, who the service providers are, what you need to do, how you do it. So many of our affiliates, as well as our state organizations, have volunteers and individuals with lived experience that are working in those communities. NAMI has support group services. We have research services, and we have a helpline that is available to find out where you can find the resources. And our helpline is from 10 to 10 every day, Monday through Friday. And you can reach it at 1-800-950-6264. And if you're looking for resources, you can go to and call the helpline, or you can text us at 64260. NAMI 64260, or you can go to NAMI.org. In terms of what we do everything from advocacy to education, and we talk about support groups. That's what we're talking about in education. We have a list of programs from family and friends to family to peer to peer. Some of these labels are programs that are run in your community and in the community, where you can actually sit and be with others that are navigating that same space that you are. And we provide learning on how to navigate that space. And what's most important is the community connection, for you to look across the table and see someone that is trying to manage the same thing you're trying to manage, so you know you are not alone. So let me keep going. Advocacy, education, research, and support. And then we go into our infrastructure in terms of what we provide. But the biggest part of that is the education and the advocacy and the outreach. And we also do work from the standpoint of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and
mm,
connecting the dots in communities where we see ourselves as the support versus the lead. Because we know in our community, it's about trust, it's about information, but is it coming from someone who's already connected to community, that
mhm,
already has a level of trust? So we're working with organizations like the Confess Project in barbershops. We're working with other organizations in communities. We're going to be working with the Divine Nine and many of the sororities and fraternities for the HBCUs. So we have work we're doing with HBCUs. We have work we're doing with community centers, and we also have work we're doing with faith-based community. We have a subgroup within NAMI called FaithNet, and that is a group that is working with us to reach out to faith-based communities. So that's a quick synopsis of who we are and what we do. Our field organization is expanding. We're developing even more assets to help the communities, and doing a lot of work from our field resources to our human resources to our education, our research. We're involved in research on one critical project, the AMP schizophrenia project, Accelerated Medicine Partnership, which is looking at biomarkers for schizophrenia, because the brain is an organ, and we're trying to find, just like we do for diabetes, kidneys, lungs, heart. We're trying to understand the organ and what are those biomarkers that we can learn of early on that could be biomarkers for schizophrenia. And that's just a little bit, Brandon, of what we're doing.
No, that's awesome, and that's extensive. Like the reach that you all have, is powerful. And like you said, like getting the community to see the community talking about these things. I can say I used to volunteer for NAMI Metro Baltimore chapter. I was there for maybe a couple years before work got too busy. But just being in community, connecting to people, and just sharing information that can help families, especially people that look like us, navigate this, because mental health was so stigmatized in our community for so long, and we're growing through that. And I think NAMI is a critical community connector as a part of that.
Yeah, you're so right. And one of the things I'd offer to you is that we have a video that I would offer to the community, that anyone listening, if they can go to NAMI.org /sharing hope. We'd love you to see that video, because it was developed for our community. It is from the voices of our community, and it's representing all the components, looking at from stigma to trauma, to being misunderstood, to being able to having to feel like you have to always have your armor on and
Yeah.
not be able to share your feelings. So it talks about having a right to feel, and humility, and being kind to yourself. So I would offer to anyone listening that video is an opportunity. And then as a volunteer, we facilitate a training session with that video. So
Wow.
yeah.
No, that's awesome. We'll definitely make sure to put the link in the video. We want people to see that, especially being kind to yourself. I mean, that's we could do a whole other episode on that in and of itself. That's major, and yeah, we'll definitely link to that video. Um, so it is Black Youth Suicide Prevention Week. We talk about what our community has to deal with, and the things and the challenges that um we've had to face and continue to face. And we've been seeing these numbers and things, and the trends in Black youth suicide um continue to go up, unfortunately, and particularly in our community, and seeing rates go up at a higher percentage in other racial ethnic groups. And so, from your perspective, with the work that you do at NAMI, your life experience, having family, friends, and things like that, because that's value also. How do we begin to impact our young people, work with them to improve their mental health, and to reduce like suicidal thoughts and things, particularly with our young kids?
Brandon, thank you. That's a very, very powerful question. And one of the things I want to also share with this audience is that I lost my contemporary, who I grew up with in DC, to suicide in 1986, and she passed in DC. And I would offer to the group that one of the things with my family is that I mentioned the year because it's now 2022, and my family has never talked about it. We need to
Wow.
talk. We need to talk. The first thing is we got to talk, and we've got to acknowledge, as the World Health Organization has said, and they coined this about some 22 years ago. There is no physical health without mental health.
Right.
We'll talk about a ACL, a torn ACL. We'll talk about a broken ankle. We'll talk about a shoulder that we've hurt. But we won't talk about our mental health. We
Right.
need to talk about our mental health, and we need to bring our young people into that conversation as early on as we can. When we ask our young people how they're doing, if they give you that social construct answer of "I'm doing fine," peel it back a little bit and say, "How are you really doing?" and be okay to just dig a little bit and ask, how are you really doing? And resource different, folks in the community that can help with that kind of a conversation. But be open, be honest, be candid, and make sure that your young people know it's okay to not be okay, but make sure that you're talking about whole health, that you're not so much
Right.
focused from the neck down that you don't focus on the neck up. And part of this is the stigma in our own community. So we have to receive it from that standpoint and acknowledge that, okay, I'm not comfortable with it. I know I'm not comfortable with it, but I'm going to step into the uncomfortable for that next generation.
Yeah. And
Because if not, we're going to have intergenerational trauma, and we're going to continue to develop this. So this is that moment in time where we can actually impact the trajectory of what we learned in a report called Ring the Alarm that was done in 2019 about the crisis of Black youth suicide in America. This is our moment in time to have our parents, our caregivers, our grandparents, our aunts and uncles, really step into the space to help our young people.
absolutely, absolutely. I love what you said about this being that moment, right? Like this has been an issue that we've shied away from for a while. Like you said, like it's hard to talk about. People don't talk about it. We don't engage in it. And so to have an opportunity now where we're really able to talk about it, there are, more resources now than ever. We are not even close to having enough, but there's more now than we ever had, and so getting those conversations are really, really, really critical. And so you talked about sharing your story, right? You talked about being open and discussing that, and there's still a lot of people that don't feel like they can be vulnerable talking about their mental health experiences. I know that this is something that NAMI has addressed with people and help people to begin to understand how to operate with their lived experience, how to use it for their benefit, for other people's benefit, and through that also bringing about healing, right? And so how do we start to encourage, to facilitate our people in particular being comfortable with being open about their mental health journeys and sharing their stories?
It begins with the Brandon Johnsons having platforms like this. It absolutely starts right here with using these new vehicles. I'm of that generation that started working before there were even laptop computers. It is a new world, and our young people connect in a new way, and we need to use all of the new resources to connect with them. We we need to also empower our educators with the knowledge on how to actually notice certain kinds of behaviors, how
Yeah.
to then get together with their other educators and talk about it, and then do they need to refer them? So we need, and we also need to really support bringing people that look like us into the work.
Yeah.
So that our young people see. So there's workforce development that needs to occur, and there's education for the folks in the community that are doing it. So, and we have to use technology. One of the things that we've done is, I don't know if I can show it to you very quickly, but we've got something here in terms of on our Siri platform. And it's like, and I'll just try and hold this up, but I'll say it real quick. Siri, I'm feeling depressed.
I'm sorry to hear that. Talking to someone might help. If you'd like, I can help you call a friend or family member, or you can find help online at NAMI.org.
Wow.
So
Wow.
this is our first volley, Brandon, into using technology, and it's not for our youngest, but we also have a program. So I'll come back to ask you what you think of this, but also we have a program called Ending the Silence, and Ending the Silence (ETS) is for high schools, and we're trying to get even into the middle schools, but it's peer-led, facilitated, where someone that looks like them is actually talking to them about, let's end the silence of not talking about this.
Right.
So you heard me talk about sharing hope. I want to mention ending the silence. And then I want to come full circle to what I just showed you with that technology. Last but not least, mental health resources for Black Americans on NAMI's website. We also provide resources on our website, mental health resources for Black Americans. So let me come back to the technology. What did you think?
Oh, listen, I didn't know that that was a thing. I did not know that that was a thing. I promise you, I'm going to be sharing that far and wide across my connections, because people need that. I mean, that's a quick way to get people connected, and so I think it's fantastic, and I love that use of technology is so key. I always tell parents, they're like, they're too much on their phones or social media. And I was like, it's not going to go anywhere. So we have to be able to learn and adapt with it, just as you said, and using those places where they are to support them. So yeah, I think that's fantastic.
And thank you. And what I love about it is it says, I can help you call a friend or family member.
Mhm.
So it's also acknowledging we don't want you to be alone. So it comes
Right.
back to you are not alone. And the other thing I want to mention is about you are not alone is our book. NAMI is getting into this space, and we've written our first book. And this first book is You're Not Alone, the NAMI Guide to Navigating Mental Health, with advice from experts and wisdom from real people and families. Over 120 interviews were done with families with lived experience that
Mm.
talked from their first person experience in terms of how they've navigated this. And as you think about it, it's so many incredible chapters. Do I need help? Is where it starts. That's the first chapter. The paradox of diagnosis,
Right.
helping your child, teen, or young adult. There's a chapter on that, and it's in the first part of the book. There's also a part that is a part of this discussion, making meaning of loss by suicide. And that's a very important chapter because it is actually from the voices of us. And there's a father here that I met, and he's speaking of his experience in navigating it with his son, uh,
Mhm.
his his uh, his son who was matriculating through a graduate program, and just had you would think he had the world in his hand. A Black father and his son, and he's navigating it. He's in this book. His
Wow.
interview is in this book. So book comes out on Tuesday, and we hope that folks will see it as a resource.
Absolutely. So by the time this airs, by the time this goes on YouTube, the book will be there. Definitely go get it. Got my copy there, and the by far the most powerful piece of it are the real people that you talked about.
Yeah.
Like, we can, there are people like us. We've dedicated our lives to this. There are researchers who've done it. There are experts or people with a ton of letters behind their name. But sometimes just knowing that someone who looks like you, just going about their day, doing some things as a real person, and have experienced the things that you have, and have 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 really gotten to a place where they've learned to talk about it, to share, and to use it to help other people, is immensely powerful. So again, by the time this drops, we'll have the link in the YouTube video to get it. We want you all to connect with that as well. And so to wrap up, first of all, thank you again for your time, your insight, and all the things that you all are doing at NAMI for everybody, and particularly for our people. I wanted to we've been using, and by now that this has dropped, people know that we're also doing videos of encouragement as a part of this Black Youth Suicide Prevention Week. And so as a part of that, we've been trying to talk about how words matter, how encouragement and those affirmations and things can be beneficial for our kids and us as well. And so if you don't mind, I'm gonna give you the floor, just to encourage a parent out there that's like struggling with, their child maybe having some suicidal ideation, maybe dealing with some mental health challenges. Just drop like 60 seconds of encouragement for that parent as they try to navigate this space.
Um, Thanks, Brandon. As a parent, I've navigated that space, and I will tell you that I know the exhaustion, I know the fear, I know the void, and I will just tell you that there's strength in your compassion, there's strength in your connection to your child or your children, and being real, and just knowing that it is something that you can absolutely address. And where there sometimes is this lack of hope. We have 5 values at NAMI: inclusion, empowerment, compassion, and fairness. And the last one is hope. And we just want to make sure that where our young people are feeling hopeless, that we make them feel hopeful. And part of them feeling hopeful is, let's have them write the stories, the positive stories, and not read the stories from the standpoint of what others are navigating, from the standpoint of the negative. Let's share as much positive with them as we can, and as much hope for what they can be, where they can be, versus that moment in time. That the ideation, the sadness, the hopelessness is really filled with this moment in time, and we have to change that paradigm and move them from that moment in time to what it could look like, and giving them some hope, and making them hopeful. So we are with you in all ways, and as a parent, and then in my role, if there's anything that we can do, please call on us. But remember, where there is an opportunity to move from hopelessness to hopeful, you design a new vision, and share that vision, and keep that vision. There's repetition and reinforcement will help with that vision. And if it's so deep, make sure you reach out to a professional, to a therapist.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, Mr. Gillison, again, thank you so much for your time, your energy, your thoughtfulness. We appreciate this. We appreciate you and all that you all are bringing to the table.
Thank you, and appreciate you, Brandon, and all that you're doing. And thank you for volunteering at NAMI earlier in your career, and all that you're doing to support all of us that are in this space. We can't do it without you. We need the strength of your voice and your platform.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So this is another day within the Black Youth Suicide Prevention Week. Stay connected. Subscribe to the Black Mental Wellness Lounge on YouTube if you haven't already. Follow us on Instagram at Black Mental Wellness Lounge, and we're on Facebook at the Black Mental Wellness Lounge. All the infographics and information will be going to those sites, and hope to see you another day at Black Youth Suicide Prevention Week.